it's the Mad Queen. Welcome into the Queen's Lair. This is another all about video in my all about Heroes Spotlight playlist series. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I chose such a name. It is a mouthful. But if you don't know, and this is the first video you're watching like this, I do have an entire playlist on the main channel of my YouTube dedicated to going in depth about each hero within the game. I am not quite there with having them all, but we are working on it. So if you want to learn more about other heroes like this, then you can check that out. It's also going to be linked at the very end of this video. The whole playlist will be, so you can check that out there as well. What I like to do whenever I go over these and I go in depth about heroes is we're going to go over all of their base stats, their abilities. We're going to go over their gears, the recommendations for their gear, hero pairings, masteries, ascensions, where they're best used, where they're not, good at, and different build options, all that good stuff. And then at the very end, I will be going in here and rating the hero everywhere in the game. That is going to be at the very end though. So if you're interested in seeing this, you'll have to stick around. But first, let's go ahead and just talk about Gangelo overall. He's a legendary hero. He is a wood element hero, which means he's green. He's going to deal additional damage to water element heroes, which are blue, and he's going to take additional damage from fire element heroes, which are red. He is an offensive hero, and honestly, I think most people do know about Gangelo. He is literally the pay-to-play king of Awaken Chaosera. Unfortunately, it's been like that since the beginning of time, or since the beginning of Awaken Chaosera time. He is a really good hero, and you're going to use him in so many places. So before we get into that, let's go ahead and talk about his base stats, and I'll go over his abilities as well. Oh, what you cannot see right now because my head is in the way, I do have my Gangelo ascended 3 times. He's at level 70, ascended 3 times. I have all of the abilities done on him and all of his glyphs as well. So for his stats, he is an offensive hero, like I said, so that means he was created to deal damage. His attack is low. It's a little over 1,000. And also keep in mind, it is going to be different for you depending on what level you have yours at. My Gangelo is level 70. So if yours is 60 or 50, the base stats you're going to be able to see on your account are going to be much different than what you're seeing here on mine. But if you go as far as you can, this is what you'll be able to achieve. So his health, he has S tier health, as you can see, 7,361, which is pretty good, especially for an offensive hero. Defense is 572, 110 speed, 6% crit rate. So if you have Gangelo, or if you've seen him be used and you know a bit about him, he's kind of a different kind of offensive hero. He doesn't deal damage in the traditional way that most other DPS units, which are offense heroes, are going to be able to, how they're going to be able to deal damage. I cannot talk. Man, one of these days, I'm afraid that somebody is just going to clip every single time I say, I can't talk, I don't know words, I can't speak in all of these videos. And, like a year from now, I'm going to get like some video of me just being really weird in my YouTube videos. But I'm also not against that if you want to put the time into it. Anyways, let's go and look at his abilities. First, we have his trait, Enhancement Agent. It's an aura. Poison damage dealt to enemies is increased by 50% once you have him ascended, which it takes 2 ascensions. Thankfully, poison damage dealt to enemies is increased by 100%. And poison deals damage based on the max health at the end of the turn of the enemy. So, yeah, that's how he's going to do all of his damage, as you're going to see, is through poison. This trait is insane, and this right here is the reason why people really seek to get this guy. I can't tell you how many times I have suggested to the staff that, we just make Gangelo a hero synthesis. Because honestly, there is some content you really can't do if you don't have him. And I don't think that's right, personally. So I would love to see that eventually, but of course, you know, I doubt it'll happen. You know, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. But next on his abilities, we have his basic unstable concoction. He deals 80% damage to one enemy and applies poison to them for 2 turns. Next, his special detonator agent removes all positive effects on one enemy, deals 100% damage to them, and recovers health based on the number of poison stacks on them. And lastly, his ultimate shock contaminant. I almost said containment. But anyways, his ultimate deals 100% damage to all enemies and applies poison to them for 2 turns. If the enemy is already affected by poison, it applies no positive effects to them for 2 turns. So no positive effects just means that the character will not be able to receive any positive effects. His kit is overall very, very, very simple. He's not a hard hero to understand for the most part. But of course, if you're newer to the game, you know, it's okay to have some questions. That's why we're here. But Gangelo has so many options as far as his build. You're not going to use this guy outside of PvE, really. And it's just unfortunate because you will use Gangelo to get into the deeper stages of hell, but then once you're really in it, in the thick of it, the late stages of hell in dungeon content most of the time don't require you to have Gangelo. So it's like there's this gap where you need him for a certain amount of time, but then once you get past this like specific point, you don't really need him anymore. And don't get me wrong, you can get through a lot of content without him. The one place you're going to struggle majorly is going to be Gemini Dragon if you don't have Gangelo. But all the other places you can really get through without him. The only thing is, he is going to be on the faster side of a lot of clear times for people that are farming within Hell Stage 2 and below. So that's where he is really, really, really good at. But they have changed the mechanics of the bosses once you get to the last 2 stages, like stage 16 and 15. So it is a bit different, and that's why he's not needed quite as much in all of those places. But Gangelo, as far as gear, I don't know that I do have him geared a bit. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me put my gear on him and then we'll talk about it a bit. Okay, so I just went ahead and slapped a couple of random pieces of gear on him. It works. My overall stats on him right now are, he has 2,000 attack. His health is 2,600. Oh my gosh. 26,000, almost 27, which is, like I was saying, that's kind of strange, right? That you would have that much health on an offensive hero. Defense is 1,900, 172 speed, 8% crit rate, 166 crit damage, 137 focus, 36% resistance, and so on and so forth. The thing with Gangelo is because he's dealing poison damage, you don't need to build attack, crit rate, and crit damage into him. You want him to be able to survive and for him to be able to consistently land all of those poisons. So the stats you want to look at are going to be his health, defense, and focus primarily. And of course, you want him to be faster than whatever, in whatever content you're using him in. If you're not doing that, then it's, it's kind of, a little pointless. But, you can still get away with it sometimes. But with him, to be able to consistently land all of those poisons and not get resisted, you will need a lot of focus. So whenever you're farming, I think it's like stage 11 and 12 of normal dungeons, in all of them, when you're using heroes that need focus or that are poison heroes, generally you're going to need to have, I think it's about 70 to 75% focus to consistently land those. Then, whenever you're getting into the health stages where you're doing health stage 2, you're going to need about, I think, 110 focus, 115. And if you go even farther, and honestly, Gangelo is not used a lot in the super late stages of content. But if you go even farther, you're going to need to have even more focus because, if any of these poisons are being resisted and he's not applying any, that is just so much damage that is being wasted. So you want him to have enough health and defense to stay alive so that he can actually do that. And that's why I say he is a bit unique. I think he's a really cool hero. I remember whenever I first started playing the game, I didn't read his kit much or anything like that, but I was just like, man, he seems really cool. I want to get him. But that was like at the very beginning, when you're just kind of like trying to get the feel for if you like the game or not. And it turned out that he was really good. And I will also say that I have only summoned, let me think. I have summoned 2 copies total of Gangelo. One was summoned actually by Veiled Shot. If you don't know who he is, he's an older content creator for the game. He does not make content anymore for Ace. He was on my account. We were doing account roasts, which is so much fun. If you haven't done those, they can be a lot of fun to do in collabs on Twitch to do during lives. So much fun. But he actually pulled my very first one for me, which was super exciting. I've been trying to get him for such a long time. I didn't get him early on either. I think that I first got him probably sometime during the summer, this last summer in 2022. After I got that, I held out for a bit and I was trying to see if I could get more copies, but if you are somebody that has also really struggled to get copies of Gangelo, then I did spend $100 buying 2 Ascension pots. So it took me 2 months to ascend him. That way I could use his trait, because if you don't have his trait, he's kind of useless. All right. He's not totally useless. He's just not really good, not that good. I don't really know how else to put it. His trait is what really, really makes him. His whole kit is good, don't get me wrong, especially for a hero that is doing all of its damage based on, a debuff and not actual skill damage. But, this trait is just 100% extra damage because it is an aura effect. This means that not only is it 100% more damage from whatever poison he puts on, any of the poison that your allies put on the enemy, it counts for that 100% increased poison damage. Sorry, I'm trying to wrap my brain together here. So he is very, very good. And I wish that I didn't have to. I think I even bought summons for that summoning specifically. And I don't know, I probably spent like $300. That's about typically what I would spend on summons back then. I don't do that anymore. But so I probably spent around $500 to get Gangelo, which is extremely unfortunate. And it's just like, you only use the guy in PvE. You're not going to use him in PvP. He's not meant for that. I mean, if you want to go out there and try to use some kind of crazy OP poison comp PvP team, go for it. Let me know how it goes. At the least, it could be fun. You never know. But as far as that, he's really just going to be a dungeon killer. You're going to use him in all of the dungeons. So as far as his ascension, like I said, you do get that on the 2nd, which is so nice. Thank goodness, because now they make all of them on the 5th Ascension. I think I say this in every video, but yes, I'm still salty about it because it didn't used to be like that. And as far as masteries go, for gearing him, you don't need to put any masteries into him. I wouldn't prioritize him at all. I think that you could probably be fine with never putting any mastery books into him. If you get to a point where you've got a lot of these books just sitting around extra and you just want to go for it, by all means, it's your account. Do what you want with it. But I honestly would not prioritize masteries at all. Sometimes I'll say maybe, after you have about 20 heroes or so, which is, come on, that's like 10 years of booking. But I wouldn't even say after 20 or 30 or even like 40 heroes. He would be like one of the very last ones I would say that you should put any masteries into. So don't sweat it unless, you're like out there buying a lot of books and trying to book everybody, go for it. But besides that, as a normal user or an average player within the game, do not put any masteries into him. And then when it comes to hero pairings, it's honestly quite easy because of his trait. The aura that makes all poison do increased damage. I can't remember how many heroes in the game actually apply poison. I don't think there's too many, but there are a handful. The biggest one you definitely will look at if you're lucky enough to get Gangelo is going to be Santis. So you can fuse her in the hero synthesis. She is an incredible hero for dungeons as well. You put these two together and you can basically clear almost all dungeon content, really. Maybe not all the way to stage 16, but like to stage 2 of hell, you should be able to farm almost every single dungeon consistently if you have those two. They are really good to use together. You can also look to use Baluk. Baluk can be farmed in the adventure stages of the game, and he's an elite hero. He also does poisons. Somebody else that you could look to pair with Gangelo as well is going to be, oh goodness, what is your name? Gajar. Okay, so Gajar is... Let me scroll here. Where are you at, my friend? Here he is. Gajar. And Gajar is basically, he can land some poisons, but his whole thing is to detonate the poisons. So he can actually make some runs pretty quick if you do have him. A lot of people don't go with this kind of team comp anymore. This was really whenever the game first came out. There's just so many options now and so many different things that you can do. But it is fun if you want to test them out together. You can put all 3 of them together. You could do Santis, Gangelo, and Gajar. As far as support heroes go, somebody that is going to be really good is going to be either Evelyn Firston or Florence is going to be really good. Anybody that can give them an extra turn, because every extra turn that he's able to get is going to give him the opportunity to land more poisons on the enemy, which just means more overall damage is going to be possible from him. His A1 does land poison. So if you're, using a support hero that is going to let him use his basic ability, there's also gear sets for that as well, which I'll talk about here in a second. I think we got into that and then I left it, but I'll get back to that in a second. Gangelo, if you're using somebody like that, then, he's just landing more poisons. So he can do more and more damage. And those kind of heroes are really good just to use in that comp overall. You're not going to really throw Gangelo with just anybody. He does need to be paired with at least one other person that does poison. So typically, you're going to have a support. You're going to have Gangelo and Santis. Sometimes, you might use a third poisoner like Baluk, but typically you use somebody that's going to help you clear the waves before you get to the boss, unless it's Gemini, because there are no waves before the boss. But for the gear, I have the Terra set on here, which is giving us extra health. He does need to have high health and defense for him to stay alive. I know I already did tell you guys a bit about this, but I have the curse set on him because when we read it, after attacking, it gives them a 35% chance to launch a bonus attack using their basic ability once per turn. So it's not per round, it's per turn, which is really nice as well. But the set that you would actually use before this is going to be the revival set. You probably will struggle with keeping your Gangelo alive at first, even when you're farming stage 12, unless, you're a later or in-game player and you've just finally gotten Gangelo. But honestly, if you are and you've made it through a lot of content, let me know. let me know how, because as far as I know, it's been basically next to impossible. But I guess if you have no choice, you might come up with some ways. So you can use the revival set, which is just going to heal whoever's wearing it by a certain amount at either at the beginning or the end of their turn. I can't remember exactly. But this curse set is just another opportunity. So you put the curse set with a support hero that is also going to allow them to take bonus turns. Sometimes he can, take 4 turns, So you never know. And then lastly, let's go ahead and rate him everywhere in the game. Let's see what they put here. Yeah, they have Gajar and Santis. These are both spot on. They have the Raptor set. You can use the Raptor set. That's just going to give you additional focus. Oh, and outside of the Curse set, the Raptor set, and the Revival set, you can also use the Terra set like I was showing. You could use a Vanguard set. You can use a, what's that other set? Oh, I can't think of what it's called. The speed boosting set. I promise I do play this game. I just can't ever remember what anything's called. Typically, you won't use that unless you're super struggling with speed. But usually you can put speed boots on Gangelo because his base health is pretty good. So in Arena, he has a 3.5. I don't know why he has that. I'm going to give him a 1. Arena defense, we're going to give him a 1. Also, I will say, don't always pay attention to the ratings in here because a lot of people are going to misrate. They're using the heroes and rating them before they have an understanding of where they fit into the game, and they might be rating them way too early and then forgetting to come back and re-rate them. So that's why I like to show this at the end so you can see all of my personal ratings and know that there's a lot of times where they don't match up. So don't always pay attention to what the game is saying everybody else is rating them. So we have No Man's Land Bane Wraith. This one, I'm going to give him 4 stars. The Flame Lizard, honestly, he can be used as a weak affinity hero. This is one of the rare cases. I'm going to give him 3 stars. He could be 4. He's more of like a 3.5 here. Of course, I can't make it simple. So in the Wraithful Flood, I am going to give him 4 stars. I don't prefer to use a poison comp in the Wraithful Flood, but I do know some people like to go that route. I can just do it faster without poison. No Man's Land, Lord of Holy Light. He can also be pretty good here. 4 stars. Shadow Captive, 4 stars as well. Roaring Tulpa. Yeah, he can be pretty good here. I would say 4.5 stars. Ash Magisteria, 4 stars. Even though he is a weak affinity, this is one of those times where, I'll actually rate somebody that's a weak affinity highly in some of those places. I don't do that very often at all. So we're going to say Queen of Tides. This is also like looking at, am I rating him overall from stage 1 through 16? Because that would bring down the rating a bit. But overall, I am going to give him 5 stars. He is excellent almost in all of the stages. Witch of the Wind, I'm going to give him 5 stars as well. Gemini Dragon, definitely 5 stars. You basically have to have him. And in the Armored Incursion, he has a 3.4, and that's rightfully so. My goodness, I'm going to give him a 1 star. They are going to be reworking the boss soon, so hopefully we'll be able to use, you know, poison and other effects on the boss besides just going off of the rage meter, so we'll have to see. If you guys have any more questions, comments, concerns, anything I may have missed, or something I didn't clearly explain because I know I was all over the place, leave something down below. I would be more than happy to get back with you. Also, join my Discord community. The link for that is in the video or in the description of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.